The entertainment world thrives on glitz, rumors, and the whirlwind of fleeting relationships, but every so often, a story emerges that seems less like tabloid fodder and more like the unfolding of a fated drama. That was exactly what happened the night Shu Kai found himself sitting in the quiet warmth of Tan Songyun's family home, when a single sentence from her mother shifted the atmosphere and left him in a silence that no one could break. It began innocently enough. After a long day of filming and endless media appearances, Shu Kai accepted an invitation that, on the surface, seemed casual. Songyun had asked him to stop by for dinner, a simple home-cooked meal, something rare in their world of endless hotel rooms and catered sets. Shu Kai, who had grown used to the chaos of luxury but seldom the comfort of simplicity, agreed. What he didn't know was that the evening would etch itself into his memory forever. The smell of braised pork belly and stir-fried vegetables greeted him the moment he stepped through the door. The modest apartment felt worlds away from the grand sets they often occupied. Shu Kai felt a sudden wave of nostalgia, as though he had walked into a memory of his own childhood. Songyun's mother greeted him warmly, her smile both kind and watchful, carrying the sort of weight only a mother's gaze can hold. Throughout dinner, laughter and light conversation carried the night. Shu Kai, who was usually reserved around elders, found himself loosening up under the warmth of the family. He told stories from set, and Songyun teased him for his habit of messing up his lines when he was distracted. Her mother laughed along, occasionally dropping hints about how hard Songyun worked, and how she wished her daughter had more time to rest. But then, as the laughter faded into quiet moments, her mother set down her chopsticks and looked at Shu Kai with a sudden seriousness that sent a chill through him. The air thickened. Songyun glanced at her mother, sensing the shift, but said nothing. Her mother's words were simple, yet they pierced deeper than Shu Kai expected. Shu Kai, she said slowly, I've watched how you look at my daughter. You try to hide it, but a mother notices things others overlook. My question to you is, are you ready for what loving her truly means? The room went silent. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator in the background. Shu Kai felt his throat tighten, his chopsticks frozen in his hand. He had been asked difficult questions by interviewers and grilled by directors, but nothing compared to the weight of this. Songyun's eyes widened slightly, her cheeks flushing. Mom, she whispered, a mix of embarrassment and warning in her tone. But her mother didn't look away. Her gaze was firm, protective, and impossibly direct. Shu Kai opened his mouth to answer, but no words came. For once, the actor who could deliver lines flawlessly under the pressure of cameras found himself utterly speechless. Her mother continued, her voice both tender and unyielding. My daughter has carried pain most people will never know. She lost her father too soon, yet she smiles for the world. She gives more of herself than she should, and in this industry, kindness is often taken for weakness. If you are here only because she makes you feel comfortable, or because she is easy to laugh with, then leave her be. She deserves more than temporary affection. She deserves someone who will protect her heart when the cameras stop rolling. The weight of her words was like a storm pressing down on him. Shu Kai's mind raced. Every stolen glance he'd shared with Songyun, every unspoken moment of tenderness on set, came rushing back in waves. He realized how transparent he must have been, how easily a mother's intuition had peeled back the layers he thought were hidden. Songyun, flustered and near tears, tried to intervene. Mom, please, it's not. But Shu Kai raised a hand gently, stopping her. His chest rose and fell as he tried to find words, but the truth was, he wasn't ready to speak. He wasn't ready to make promises he wasn't certain he could keep. Her mother's piercing gaze softened slightly, as though she had seen the storm inside him. I don't ask for perfection, Shu Kai, she said. I only ask that if you ever choose her, you choose her with your whole heart. Not halfway. Not in secret. But fully. It was in that moment that Shu Kai felt the reality of the path before him. This wasn't a script. This wasn't a scene where the director would yell cut and offer him another chance to get it right. This was real, raw, and irreversible. After what felt like an eternity, Shu Kai set down his chopsticks. His voice, when it finally emerged, was quiet, almost hoarse. I don't know what the future holds. But I do know that your daughter is extraordinary. She deserves every bit of happiness the world can offer. And if I ever become someone who takes that from her, then I would rather walk away now." The sincerity in his voice hung in the air. Songyun's eyes glistened, her mother studied him with a gaze that carried both approval and caution, and Shu Kai himself felt stripped bare in a way he never had before. The rest of the evening moved gently, almost as if everyone was treading carefully over fragile glass. The warmth returned, but quieter, more thoughtful. When Shu Kai finally stood to leave, Songyun walked him to the door. Outside, under the dim light of the hallway, she turned to him, her expression unreadable. "You didn't have to answer her that way," she said softly. Shu Kai looked at her, the weight of her mother's words still pressing on him. "I couldn't lie," he admitted. "Not to her. Not to you." There was a pause. Then, unexpectedly, Songyun smiled a small, bittersweet smile. "That's why she asked. She wanted to see if you'd be honest, even when the truth wasn't easy." The door closed softly behind her, and Shu Kai walked away with a storm raging inside him. Her mother's words echoed in his mind, not as a warning, but as a challenge, a call to rise to something greater than fleeting feelings. That night became a turning point. Fans would never know the details, but they noticed subtle changes in Shu Kai afterward. In interviews, when Songyun's name came up, his eyes carried a depth they hadn't before. On set, the chemistry between them seemed sharper, as though something invisible had shifted. Behind the glittering lights of fame, one mother's words had shaken a man to his core, stripping away the glamour and leaving only the raw question of love's true cost. And Shu Kai, once left speechless, now carried an answer that was slowly, steadily forming in his heart. The story didn't end that night, it only began. For in the world of fleeting fame and carefully staged perfection, it was the raw honesty of a mother's love that dared to remind two people of what truly mattered. And Shu Kai, humbled and transformed, would never forget the moment her words carved themselves into his very soul. The silence after her mother's words wasn't ordinary silence. It was the kind that wrapped around the room like smoke, heavy and impossible to escape. Shu Kai sat frozen, his heart pounding so loudly he was sure both women could hear it. He could feel the sting of her mother's gaze, sharp and unwavering, but it wasn't cruel, it was a gaze filled with the kind of fierce love only a mother could possess. Shu Kai had always thought of himself as someone who could handle pressure. He had survived ruthless directors, merciless criticism, and the endless spotlight of fame. But this, sitting across from Tan Songyun's mother, being asked the one question he had never dared to ask himself, it was unlike anything he had ever experienced. Songyun shifted in her seat, her hands fidgeting nervously under the table. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment, and yet, deep down, she wanted to know his answer too. She had never pressed him for clarity. She had let their bond remain unspoken, fragile, suspended between friendship and something more. But now, her mother had said what she never dared to say aloud. Shu Kai cleared his throat, but the words refused to form. Every time he tried to speak, the truth tangled with fear. What if he admitted he cared too much? What if he wasn't ready to live up to her mother's expectations? What if this was the very moment that destroyed whatever delicate thread held him and Songyun together? Her mother didn't look away. "Silence can mean many things, Shu Kai," she said, her voice calm but firm. "But silence, in love, often breaks hearts." The line hit him like a blow. Silence in love. That had always been his safe space, his shield. With his growing fame, silence was easier than promises, safer than confessions. Yet here, with Songyun's mother, silence felt cowardly. Songyun finally broke the tension, her voice trembling. "Mom, please, don't put him on the spot." But her mother shook her head gently. "No, my child. If he truly cares, he should be able to stand in discomfort for you. Love is not about ease, it is about courage." The words sliced through Shu Kai's chest. Courage. That was the very thing he lacked at this moment. He found himself staring at his plate, the food untouched, as if it no longer mattered. His mind replayed moments with Songyun, the late-night conversations after filming, the way her laugh always disarmed him, the way she carried her grief quietly but never let it harden her spirit. She wasn't like anyone else. She was someone who deserved more than hesitation. Finally, Shu Kai looked up. His lips parted, and his voice came out low, almost shaky. "I don't want to hurt her." It wasn't the declaration anyone expected, least of all Songyun. Her eyes widened, shimmering with unshed tears. He hadn't said he loved her. He hadn't made promises. But the rawness in his tone, the way he looked at her mother instead of hiding, spoke volumes. Her mother's sternness softened. "Then prove it, Shu Kai. Don't hurt her by giving her half of you. Don't hurt her by hiding when it's easier than fighting. My daughter's heart is not a game." The weight of her warning pressed down on him harder than any script or stage could. Shu Kai nodded slightly, his throat too tight to speak again. It was the smallest of gestures, but it carried the weight of his silent vow. Songyun reached for her glass of water, her hands trembling just enough for Shu Kai to notice. The tension in the room was almost unbearable, and yet, beneath it all, something had shifted. For the first time, everything was out in the open. Dinner eventually resumed, though the atmosphere was quieter, more careful. Shu Kai forced himself to eat, though he tasted nothing. Songyun tried to lighten the mood with small jokes, but even she couldn't erase the echo of her mother's words. When the plates were cleared and Shu Kai finally stood to leave, her mother surprised him by walking him to the door. Songyun lingered back in the dining room, giving them space, though she pretended to tidy the dishes. Her mother's voice dropped low, almost gentle now. "You know why I said what I said, don't you?" Shu Kai nodded. His voice was almost a whisper. "Because you love her." Her mother gave a small, sad smile. "And because I see something in you too. Don't waste it. Don't waste her." It was both a warning and a strange kind of blessing. For the first time that night, Shu Kai dared to meet her eyes fully, no fear, no shame. He gave a small bow, his voice steady now. "Thank you for trusting me enough to say it." When he stepped outside, the cool night air hit him like a wave. He inhaled deeply, the taste of the moment still heavy in his chest. And then, just as he was about to walk away, Songyun appeared at the doorway. She didn't speak immediately. She just stood there, her face half hidden in the glow of the hallway light, looking at him like she was trying to read his soul. "Are you angry with her?" she finally asked, her voice small. Shu Kai shook his head. "No. I think she said what I needed to hear." Songyun's lips curved into a fragile smile, one that carried relief but also 1,000 unspoken emotions. She didn't press further. She simply nodded, and the door slowly closed between them. But for Shu Kai, nothing closed that night. Something had been opened, something he could no longer ignore. Her mother's words replayed endlessly in his head, each repetition pushing him closer to a truth he had been too afraid to admit. That night, Shu Kai lay awake, staring at the ceiling of his hotel room. For once, the silence he had always hidden behind no longer felt safe. It felt suffocating. And deep in his chest, he knew, he couldn't stay silent forever. The next time he saw Tan Songyun, everything between them would feel different. Her mother had made sure of that. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more mind-blowing celebrity stories and secrets revealed.